Good evening and welcome to the DBS News World. I am your presenter, Alex Bousquet. The Minister in the Prime Minister's office with responsibility for tourism, Dominic Fede, is defending the UWP government's decision to investigate a former High Commissioner to the UK, Dr. Ernest Hilaire. The probe is supposed to determine his involvement in what has become known as the Jufali affair. Last week, the Prime Minister announced that government had launched an investigation into the circumstances surrounding the appointment of the late Saudi Arabian billionaire. Don Nicholas reports.
Dr. Hilaire has welcomed an investigation announced by Prime Minister Alan Chastanet into his involvement in the Jufali affair. Dr. Walid Jufali was St. Lucia's permanent representative to the International Maritime Organization, IMO, but there are a lot of questions about how he came to hold the position.
The Prime Minister has to do everything he can to discredit me. Everything he can. It is an attempt to discredit me, it's an attempt to embarrass me, it's an attempt to shut me up. Why? Maybe because my mouth is the biggest and I criticize the most and I ask the most questions. So the Prime Minister has to find a way to go after me to destroy me. I am convinced of that. When I spoke in Parliament, the budget last year, I said, I know I'm a marked man. I said, I know I am a marked man, and I know over the next few months, there's so many questions I will have to ask this government that they will do every and anything they can to come after me as a parliamentarian. But let me say to the Prime Minister that he's just started to announce investigations. In fact, he should be prepared to have 1,000 million investigations in me, because I'll ask him 1,000 million hard questions. I will not let up to ask the hard questions and to hold the government to account.
Minister in the Prime Minister's office with responsibility for tourism, Dominic Fede, says his party will not engage in what he called a political witch hunt. However, Mr. Fede noted that there was no announcement of Mr. Jufali's appointment. He went on to explain that when divorce proceedings began between Dr. Jufali and his wife, he used his diplomatic status in St. Lucia to deny his wife alimony entitlements. Mr. Fede further stated that the former administration rejected a request to waive the billionaire's diplomatic status.
Remember as well where the Foreign and Commonwealth Office would have written to the government of St. Lucia asking for cooperation, perhaps of a temporary waiver of the status. That was actually rejected by the previous administration, a very traditional friend and ally like the United Kingdom.
These issues surrounding the appointment, according to the minister, warrant an investigation. For the DBS News World, I am Don Nicholas.
Opposition leader Philip Pierre says he has full confidence in two of his members who are currently under investigation. This after Prime Minister Alan Chastanet last week announced that the government had launched investigations into the so-called minister's account and the Jufali affair, which involved the Dennery North MP Sean Edward and Castries South MP Dr. Ernest Hilaire, respectively. More in this.
The minister's account controversy involves former Youth and Sports Minister and Dennery North MP Sean Edward, who has been accused by the government of allegedly mishandling funds disbursed for sports development. The Jufali matter involves the late Dr. Walid Jufali, a Saudi billionaire who was appointed as St. Lucia's permanent representative to the International Maritime Organization in 2014, a position previously held by Dr. Hilaire. The appointment came to the fore following a divorce battle in which the UK Court of Appeal overruled a diplomatic immunity request by Dr. Jufali on the grounds that he was the island's IMO representative. Both Edward and Hilaire have denied any wrongdoing. At a press conference on Wednesday, the opposition leader defended the two men and called the investigations by the government a political witch hunt.
As leader of the party, I have full confidence in Dr. Hilaire. I have full confidence in his work as Parliamentary for Castries South and his work as High Commissioner to St. Lucia in London. And I believe that what's happening is a political witch hunt, which is not new to him. In fact, the honourable member for Henry North. There's also investigation into the so-called minister's accounts. I've spoken to both of my colleagues. I have full confidence in them, and I think it's a political witch hunt, and at some point the truth will come to the forefront.
Prime Minister Chasney also questioned whether the vehicle, a 2014 Land Rover Sport driven by Dr. Hille, actually belongs to him or the state.
I'm glad the issue of the vehicle is coming out in the public domain. All I can say, and I'm waiting for the government to make the announcement and to say whatever they want to say. If anybody believes the vehicle I have is theirs or the government owned, come and take it. That's what I will say. Come and take it. If anyone believes that the vehicle I drive belongs to them or the government, they should come and take it. Don't delay. And when they come to take it, I will gladly give them the key. No fuss, no fight. But it's what happens after. And I mean, a few public servants talking and saying one thing, because it's very simple to prove ownership of anything. It's very simple to prove ownership. If I go to gentleman Mike over there and tell him his glasses is not his, prove that he own it. He doesn't have to prove he own it. If I believe it's mine, I have to prove I own it. And I'm sure he can prove how he owns it. So if anybody believes the vehicle I have, I want them to say it publicly, because and not to use the privileges of the house to say it. Say it out in public, where you can stand and you have to stand and defend what you're saying. Because those things it just shows you how malicious and vindictive the government is.
Dr. Hille says he is looking forward to the next sitting of the House of Assembly to respond to the Prime Minister. For the DBS News World, I am Sheffield Gillard.
The St. Lucia Labour Party has responded to suggestions that its supporters are responsible for a string of fires around the island, the most recent being that of the Folk Research Centre on Sunday. The accusations, which began circulating on social media after the Soufriere Hospital fires last year, were repeated this week after the FRC was destroyed by a late-night blaze on Sunday. Sheffield Gillard reports.
The reports began last year when 2 successive fires occurred at the Soufriere Hospital. These were followed by a fire at the DSH construction site where heavy equipment was set ablaze. Social media was abuzz with suggestions that all 3 were deliberately set and that they were politically motivated. The opposition SLP says it is irresponsible on the part of the persons making the accusations, especially without the relevant reports from the police and fire departments.
For the UWP to believe and to link a fire at the Folk Research Centre, where we as a party vested the land in the hands of the Folk Research Centre as a party when we did that, for them to believe and to imply that this is politically motivated shows where the mind is, shows what their intentions concerning us are, and the vindictiveness of that party, of the men. It shows you the caliber of people who are in that party. To think about this this is something we would never even think of.
Dr. Hille says the opposition can blame party hacks for the various fires so that they get contracts to rebuild, but the opposition does not work that way.
If there are fires in St. Lucia, the police and the fire service investigates and they take the necessary action. Plain and simple. It's irresponsible for any political party in a situation where there are a series of fires around to try to create the impression that it is been caused by the opposition party. It's irresponsible to do so, because equally the opposition party can say, you know what, there are certain people causing those fires so they can get contracts to rebuild. But isn't that, why should you say that? That's irresponsible. It can be said, but I don't think anybody should say that.
Dr. Hille says it has become the norm for the UWP supporters to blame the SLP for the ills plaguing the country.
It's not new, because when there were rips before and Labour Party was in power, remember, the rips were caused by Labour Party. It was Alvina that causing it. When there were murders, it was Kenny Anthony and Lacobin here. When there was suicide, it was Labour Party. We were in government then. We never said it's the opposition causing the rapes, the suicides, the murders. The same tactic. There's a rape, there's a murder, there's a suicide, it's Labour Party causing it. You were in government If you believe Labour Party operatives are causing fires, set the police to arrest them. And I assure you, as a parliamentarian of the Labour Party, I will not defend that. If anybody is involved in that act, it is grossly irresponsible.
There has been no official report on the causes of the Soufriere Hospital, DSH, or the Folk Research Center fires. For the DBS News World, I am Sheffield Gillard.
Director of the St. Lucia National Trust, Bishnu Tulsi, believes that the fire which destroyed the Folk Research Center will move agencies that can lend assistance in archive preservation to do so. The statement follows remarks by FRC officials that their pleas for help to digitize the records have been ignored since 2003. Don Nicholas reports.
The St. Lucia National Trust is saddened by the plight of the FRC. Moving forward, the Trust is hoping that the relevant agencies would become more mindful of the need to protect the island's historical and cultural archives. The Trust has already provided support to the center in this time of need, making the Walcott House available for the organization's after-school program. The Trust is prepared to offer further assistance, and its council will be meeting with the FRC board to determine what their needs are.
We have reached out to the FRC to lend our support in whatever way we can. Immediately we'll be making the Walcott House available to the FRC so that they could continue their after-school program with the kids. Our council will soon be meeting with the board of the FRC to explore other areas in which we could be of assistance.
The Trust has seen the importance of digitizing its records and keeping backup copies of property so that in the event of a disaster, the information can be retrieved. The preservation exercise is an expensive venture, but worth it.
I hope that other agencies will see the merit of doing this and invest the funds. Hopefully government or some other agency can assist with this. But I think creating digital copies is important. We live in an age where people access information digitally, and digitization will not only protect but also improve access.
The FRC building and all the records stored there were completely destroyed by fire on Sunday. For the DBS News World, I am Don Nicholas.
Please stay tuned to the DBS News World. More news after this. Welcome back to the DBS News World. Lucilec's 3-megawatt solar farm in La Tournivé 4 is nearing completion. Construction of the $20 million renewable energy project started November last year, and officials of the St. Lucia Electricity Services Limited, who recently toured the project, are pleased with the progress to date. By the time the island's first utility-scale solar farm is completed, it will comprise nearly 15,000 solar panels. They will be spread across 3 sites distributed over a total of 10 acres of land just north of the Herenora International Airport. Most of the panels have already been installed. The fencing of the site has been completed. Drainage and service road works are in various stages of progress, and the electricity infrastructure to feed the energy from the solar farm into the main electricity grid has been done. On a recent tour of the project site, Lucilec officials got a first-hand view of work in progress and the quality of workmanship. They were comfortable. The project was about 80% complete and on schedule to be finished within the next few weeks.
This site is 2-megawatt site, and this is almost completed and should be completed in the next week and a half or so. And the other site, which is further down, 7C, which is a 1-megawatt, where you have more problems in terms of putting in the what we call the racking, the frames and so on, should be finished in the next 2 weeks. After that, we'll have commissioning, which should take another 2 weeks. So we're looking at completing this in late April, early May. And basically then there'll be the cleaning up and the finishing works.
The main contractor of the project is Grupotech, an international firm with a portfolio of over 500 megawatts of solar plants worldwide. But in the design of the project and the contract, Lucilec ensured there were provisions for local labor as well as a transfer of knowledge and technology.
We have about 3 sets of local contractors and about 2 foreign contractors, and the foreign contractors have also employed locals to complete the workforce. You have about 40 to 45 local people there, from laborers to electricians and so on.
Lucilec expects that by the middle of May, the solar farm will be completed and the renewable energy from there firmly integrated into the grid. The 3-megawatt solar farm will generate 7 million kilowatt hours or units of electricity per year, which is about 1.3% of the electricity generated from Lucilec's cul-de-sac power plant. It will reduce the volume of fuel purchased by Lucilec by about 300,000 gallons per year. Lucilec uses approximately 19 million gallons of fuel per year. For the DBS News World, I am Alex Busquet. The Ministry of Health continues its public education drive on leptospirosis with key groups. Outreach programs are being conducted throughout the island with the aim of eliminating new cases of leptospirosis and reducing the rodent population. More from Miguel Morissette.
Over the past few weeks, a team from the Ministry of Health was deployed in the Castries Basin to identify health gaps and educate market vendors on measures which can be practiced to curb the spread of leptospirosis. Health educator Nadesh Smith-Lambert explains.
What we're doing is giving them information, listen to some of their concerns, given the environment that they work in. We're trying to see how best they can use the resources that they have. So, for instance, they don't have running water. However, they could work with bottles where they use to wash their hands properly. We're also talking to them about proper hygiene practices. Some of our food vendors, I should say some of our coconut vendors specifically, were able to identify some of the problems that they face as coconut vendors, and we're also able to share with them what they can do to be able to sell people good products, to be able to bottle their coconut water properly, and also when it comes to the jelly, how exactly they sell the jelly to their customers in a proper way. I found this exercise to be very effective. The food vendors and the produce vendors participated very well. They asked questions. There was a lot of things that they did not know, so we spoke about things like leptospirosis, and a lot of people did not know that leptospirosis is not only transmitted by the rats, but there are other animals that carry the bacteria.
Special emphasis has been placed on coconut vending, as there are concerns that leptospirosis may be transmitted when persons drink directly from contaminated nuts. Health officials are encouraging persons to drink from a straw, wash the coconut, or drink packaged coconut water. One coconut vendor said limited resources and time constraints are major concerns.
Normally we try to wash them at mornings, but sometimes if they're going to come straight from the farm, it's hard for you to wash it at that time. But when we come from our homes every morning, we ensure we wash it. So the other thing too, we need City Council to give us more access to water in the market. So when we're there while selling, we can do all what we have to do then, so the customers can see right in the eyes everything going on. Yeah, so we can show them definitely what's going on.
Another market vendor said whilst growing up, they weren't aware of leptospirosis' existence. However, she found that the information disseminated by the ministry's team was very insightful and complimented them for this initiative.
I applaud the Ministry of Health, the way they are informing people concerning the disease.
Thus far, the ministry has confirmed 26 cases and 4 deaths due to leptospirosis. For the Ministry of Health and Wellness, I am Miguel Morissette.
The Ministry of Education, Innovation, Gender Relations and Sustainable Development has now introduced computer coding and robotics as a pilot project in 4 secondary schools around the island. Fernell Neptune reports.
The Computer Coding and Robotics program is expected to develop a positive behavioral change in students, with its official launch recently at the Granovier Secondary School. The 4 schools to benefit from this program are Binfield Secondary, Bocage Secondary, Granovier Secondary, and Suffolk Comprehensive Secondary Schools. Minister with responsibility for education, the Honorable Dr. Gil Rigobert, says her ministry remains committed to better equipping schools and teachers with the skills and necessary infrastructure to develop a modern education that reflects the holistic integration of technology in the classroom.
There is considerable anecdotal evidence that suggests that students respond well in subjects that integrate new technologies and involve programming of robots. Teaching robotics is not an end in and of itself, but robotics can help address the growing demand for teaching science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Moreover, robotics facilitates learning by students with very diverse learning abilities.
Acting Deputy Chief Education Officer for Instruction, Dawson Raghunandan, says the computer coding and robotics program will allow for the modernization of the school's curriculum.
The robotics component provides an environment for students to develop their coding skills, and they are able to see the results of their actions immediately as they do their coding. So it's very engaging. Students, I must say, you are expected to work in teams, which is very important with this program. And that is going to encourage or develop your communication skills.
The computer coding and robotics pilot program was made possible by the financial support of the United States Agency for International Development, USAID, through the Community, Family and Youth Resilience, CFYR program. United States Ambassador to Barbados, the Eastern Caribbean and the OECS, Linda Tapia-Lutelo, encouraged the St. Lucian youth to take advantage of the opportunities to learn and make use of the technology.
Our children's futures are important to all of us, both here in the Caribbean as well as in the United States. Education is key to unlocking potential and is vital to creating a society that offers young people opportunities to excel. This new robotic initiative, which the United States government supports, reflects our commitment to advance innovation and to bring excellence into the classroom.
12 teachers and 4 youth mentors have been trained to deliver a basic coding curriculum. From the Communications Unit of the Ministry of Education, Innovation, Gender Relations and Sustainable Development, I am Fernanda.
The Ministry of Health is placing special prominence on nurturing healthy lifestyles in students across the island. A ban on sodas and sugary treats is the main thrust of the message of the Nutrition Unit to schools around the island. Miguel Morissette reports.
The Nutrition Unit in the Ministry of Health and Wellness is employing new strategies, all in an effort to sensitize the entire school population on the dangers of excessive consumption of sugars and sodas. On Thursday, March 28th, the Nutrition Unit visited the Vidbutai Secondary School as their first target. Nutritionist in the Ministry of Health, Fadia Campbell, explains.
So today we are here and we have a number of activities. We have a skit to highlight the dangers of excess consumption of soft drinks. And we also have some displays that will tell the students the number of teaspoons of sugar. So we really want our student population to adopt healthier lifestyles by eating more fruits and vegetables and their peas, beans, legumes, and also to drink lots of water and also be very active. So we are here and we are excited as the Nutrition Unit, and we have our very staff to put on that skit.
You cannot have diabetes, okay? No, I have it. I have to prick myself and take insulin every day. Last week, my sugar was 300. What? What is this world coming to? Children have diabetes now. It's only old people that used to have diabetes. My dear, you do not want to end up like me. You see this? I don't even have my toes. The doctor cut the toes in the hospital. You don't want to be like me. Take care of yourself, okay?
Campbell underscored the importance of engaging in healthy lifestyle practices.
There is a great association between excessive sugar-sweetened beverage consumption and diabetes, obesity, heart disease, and you're talking about the chronic non-communicable diseases. Also, there's research to show there is the association with asthma, bone disease. So it's a number of health-related diseases that are associated with soft drink consumption, and not just soft drink, but excess sugar consumption.
Members of the nutrition team believe that the information provided was well ingested by students based on the feedback they received. The unit will continue their campaign journey in the near future. For the Ministry of Health and Wellness, I am Miguel Morissette.
The DBS News World will continue after these short messages. Welcome back. One male individual was charged with indecent exposure and urinating in public after he was found relieving himself on West Hall Lane in Castries. The offense carried a fine of $1,000. Sheffield Gillard reports.
Castries Mayor Peterson Francis, upon assuming office, promised to change the appearance of the city and to also change the behavior of city residents. One way of doing this was by having city police begin enforcing a number of regulations long consigned to oblivion, among them laws against urinating in public. On Sunday, March 25th, at approximately 11:36 a.m., city police officers arrested an individual who reportedly publicly exposed his genitals and proceeded to urinate in plain view of passing motorists and pedestrians. He was taken to the 1st District Court on Monday to answer to the said charge.
This is not the first time that this is happening, but this will be the first time we bring an offender before the court. We usually caution them, but it's high time we set the example, because when you pass on the streets, it's not a healthy thing. I mean, the stench on the street. So it's high time law and order. We have to enforce law and order in the city.
The city of Castries has 15 public restrooms which open from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. to prevent such practices.
I'm sending a warning to the offenders. There are public facilities out there. Use the facilities. Do not expose yourself. Do not urinate in the public. There are public facilities available. Use the public facilities. Let's upgrade the city. Let's have a safer city, a cleaner city.
The offender was charged with indecent exposure and was granted bail in the sum of $1,000. For the DBS News World, I am Sheffield Gillard.
Minibus drivers are threatening protest action if one of their colleagues is penalized for public urination. Julian Jones, a minibus driver who operates on the Moshi bus stand, was arrested for the offense this week. But he and fellow bus drivers say for years they have been asking for a toilet facility to be erected near the bus terminal. In the absence of a restroom, they say they are forced to improvise. More in this report. Julian Jones, a Moshi minibus operator, was caught urinating in public and has been summoned to court for committing the offense. But he and his fellow drivers say if he, Jones, is charged for the offense, they and the Grozile minibus drivers will resort to strike action.
Well, this morning I reached here early. Now normally the toilet in the restaurant is open, but when I reached here it wasn't open yet, and I wanted to pee, so I went at the back in the little corner in front there and pee. So when I was walking back, I saw one of those police officers, city police officers. She called me. She told me, well, I was peeing there, so let's go down. So she want to go and question me and then whatever. So I tell her, well, okay, no problem. So I went down with her. She tell me, well, they're going to summons me so that I could come to court and whatever. So I came back there. I told my the drivers that. So we decided to come on the news because right now there we don't have no facilities, no toilet, nothing, and they want to charge us for peeing. So what I'm telling the government, if they want to charge us, they have to provide something for us, you understand? So we're not going to allow us being charged and we don't have no facilities, you understand? So if we have to strike so that they could hear our voice. That's what we're going to do.
But the press and communications manager at the CCC says there are facilities that are nearby that the minibus operators can use, and they should stop making excuses for their actions.
First and foremost, we need to inform the minibus operators that there are facilities within the operating space. Right? We have over 11 comfort stations within Castries. We now at council, we know the challenge now is to continue with our drive to educate and to place signage so that persons can know. Those who do not know will know exactly where those comfort stations are. Now, we're speaking about the Moshi bus stop. There's a comfort station right next door, right next to the Babuno bus stop. There's a comfort station within that central area, and if you take a walk lower down opposite the Bexor bus stop, there's also a comfort station there. So there's no excuse to urinate in any part of the city.
For some time, it has been the norm for individuals to urinate anywhere within the city, but Mr. Hollingshead says that does not mean that it is right to do so. Peter Benjamin, also a Moshi minibus operator, says that the mentioned comfort facilities are too far from where they operate.
We cannot entertain the ones they have all at the market. You understand? Because that is a distance from us. And if you look at the yard, you see the amount of buses that's there between that's traveling to the north, that's Grosley and Moshi. We are the two main providers of transportation in the north, and we don't have a facility over there. You understand? So to me, that's putting the cart before the horse. You know, they should put these facilities in place, and then if we don't entertain that, you could take further action. But for me, we're not ready for that kind of thing yet.
I can recall some time back the ministry came and we had a tour around the area where they can place a facility for us, and that have never happened. So we're still hoping that one day they can give us a proper facility, but in the meantime, I feel it's unfair to us.
Minibus drivers of the Moshi bus stand say they want to dialogue with the mayor on the matter. Mr. Hollingshead says the mayor's door is always open to the public. This has been the third individual who has been arrested for the offense of urinating in public. Castries Mayor Peterson Francis appears unperturbed by threats of strike action if one of their colleagues is taken to court for urinating in public. The drivers say they have no choice but to relieve themselves in public after repeated requests for toilet facilities to be erected at the bus terminal have gone unanswered. But the mayor says the law will be enforced regardless. Minibus drivers on the Moshi bus stand threatened to take strike action after fellow driver Julian Jones was brought in by city police for urinating in public on Wednesday morning. But Mayor Peterson Francis says the law will be applied regardless of how the drivers feel.
Obviously, if he was arrested, it means that he has been charged. In other words, he has not been brought in front of a magistrate. He was bailed on his own recognizance. But he has been charged, and he's just waiting for his day in court. I wasn't the one who put the laws on the books, you know. All what I'm doing now is to adhere to the laws of St. Lucia. So the other thing is this. We have a situation that where you find people believe that every step they make, there should be what they require in life. Within that vicinity, we have free washrooms, immediate vicinity of that place. Okay? So there is no excuse, because the place they leave the bus and go inside of the gardens. It is similar the same distance or less to go to the public washroom. We have free within that circle. Where do they want us to put a washroom? I understand for convenience, people coming on the bus, and we have been talking to the association. They have applied to DCA, which we have supported, so that we're going to put something in the immediate vicinity. But the problem I'm having in St. Lucia is that we have to put everything next door for them, next door. So just now they lack the washrooms on the bus.
Mayor Peterson Francis noted that some of the same people protesting have no difficulty adhering to laws of a foreign country whenever they travel, but feel the local laws do not apply to them. As for the proposed strike action, Mayor Francis says they will not be striking against him, but against the law.
They're striking against the law. And not only that, the place where they're urinating is behind a school. Okay? What are they going to strike for? Strike against the law? Strike against the mayor? Strike against upholding the law? I don't know what they're going to strike about. But while it's on that point, when they drive, I want to know what happens when they leave Castries on their way to Grozile and they want to urinate. What do? Where do they have a washroom? And we must stop these things in St. Lucia, trying to spoon feed people, because when they travel, they observe every law. I was in New York myself recently, last year, and I wanted to urinate. I had to do every type of things in my face to get to a business place where I had to buy something to adhere to the law.
Mayor Francis adds that the law is not for some people, but for all. Students of the St. Mary's College took the issue of road safety to the streets on Monday, concerned about the number of collisions and road fatalities recorded in recent years. The SMC young leaders undertook a campaign dubbed "Make Road Safety Your Priority." More in this report.
The group of students visited a number of bus terminals in Castries Monday morning, preaching to minibus drivers the importance of road safety with the goal of reducing accidents and fatalities. The students came up with the idea after one of their fellow students lost his life earlier this year in a vehicle accident. Following the discussions, drivers were given bumper stickers promoting road safety.
The initiative is really important because of late there have been a lot of road fatalities. One of the boys who died, they were a past student of St. Mary's College. And it really touched us. That's why we picked road safety as our topic. And I mean, it's sad because we see a lot of talented minds wasted because of simple speeding or drinking or not having a seatbelt or being reckless on the road. So we really like to change that.
Minibus drivers have been heavily criticized for their driving practices, and although the students are not license holders as yet, the drivers welcome the venture.
A lot of our drivers, when they're on the road, they're not in the right state of mind. It's all, the mind is on the money. And they do rush. And rushing is not a safety on that road. You need to be very careful and proactive also, because you're not the only one on the road.
The students plan to return to the school, but this time to target their parents. According to a UN World Health Organization 2015 report, every 4 minutes, a child dies from a traffic accident. For adolescents aged 15 to 17, road traffic injuries are the leading cause of death worldwide, with boys accounting for nearly twice as many road traffic deaths as girls. For the DBS News World, I am Sheffield Gillard.
Some of St. Lucia's leading calypsonians have come together to collaborate on the production of a calypso and music video to support public education and advocacy on climate change adaptation. The project was launched this week. A social media-driven digital media youth challenge targeting St. Lucian youth and primary schools challenge was also launched. The interventions are part of a broader public education campaign promoting the right behaviors to build resilience to the impacts of climate change. In 2016, Right Angle Imaging was contracted to conduct a baseline study on knowledge, attitudes, and behaviors as it relates to climate change in St. Lucia. A campaign was launched specifically for this venture. Coming out of the survey, it was noted that the approach to public education needed to be innovative, finding mechanisms to embrace various demographics in the design of the tools used to convey the climate change message. The participatory component of the campaign was launched on Monday, at which point 3 examples were featured.
We formed a partnership with select Calypsonians around St. Lucia. Well, it was not select. It was who was immediately available within the timelines that we had. So we formed a partnership with Nahum Jean-Baptiste, former Monarchs, Pep, Herb Black, Educator. We had T.C. Brown, Minel, Chocolate and Ready. They were readily available, you know. Francis Lee Bodilima, that is the last production that he's produced. And Daniel, whose studios that we used, and we produced a calypso and a music video. But the calypso was, you know, the lyrics were composed by the calypsonians, the melody by Nahum Jabatis, you know, that kind of way.
A partnership was formed with the Ministry of Education to work with the island's primary schools, including the challenge within the National Science Fair mechanism.
Towards the end of April, people will see what primary school children in St. Lucia designed as their own recommendations, what they think can be done, for instance, to help householders and community people to better manage waste, you know. We launched a campaign today targeting young people around the island, tertiary level, young people in and out of school. The challenge is to design a 60-second video PSA advising homeowners and property owners on what they can do to better adapt to climate change, to increase their resilience to climate change. And we launched that in an environment where we already have tools that we ourselves have produced treating of these same things. So they have the resource, they have the information around, but they themselves, because now the technological age, young people are very much into that, they can now create their own tools.
Mr. Small says coming out of the campaign, the hope is that young individuals will develop as many videos as possible, pushing property owners and householders to accept that everybody has a role to play in finding ways to adapt to the impacts of climate change. Please stay tuned. The DBS News World will be right back. Thank you for staying with us. Nurses at the St. Jude Hospital have applied for membership to the National Workers Union. Union officials say the application process should be finalized within the next 4 weeks. Here's Don Nicholas with the details.
For many years, the National Workers Union has been the bargaining agent for St. Jude Hospital workers. The hospital is a statutory corporation which allows for freedom of association. Therefore, the nurses have exercised their right to apply for membership with the union. The union is concerned about the deteriorating condition of the George Odlum Stadium, where the medical practitioners are operating from. The stadium has been used as a makeshift hospital ever since the St. Jude Hospital fire in 2009.
It's not a hospital, so obviously it was not meant to handle the capacity and movement of a hospital in terms of room setup, layout, everything. So that, in addition to the fact of the building is falling apart, galvanized flying everywhere, particles falling on the staff, confined spaces and stuff like that. It's not good for the workers, it's not good for the patients.
The National Workers Union has already submitted the nurses' applications for membership to the Labour Department. The process should take approximately 4 weeks to finalize.
The Labour Department now has to do everything within the law to make sure that the process goes within the specified number of days by law. So they would have to write the entity, let them know that we have applied for recognition. The entity would then have to write back, and then we would have to see how we move forward in terms of gaining the recognition.
The union commended the St. Jude employees for giving their best despite the trying conditions. For the DBS News World, I am Don Nicholas.
A team from the Ministry of Local Government met with members of the Vieux-Fort South Constituency Council recently to discuss government's plans for the area and to explore available options to breathe new economic life into the constituency. More in this report.
The team from the Ministry of Local Government included Minister Senator Fortuna Belrose, Permanent Secretary Donovan Williams, along with representatives from the St. Lucia ANC Ports Authority.
It's more or less a routine visit by my minister and my PS. But today, the particular reason that they really came is to see like what we could do to elevate Vieux-Fort. You know, in terms of the heavy-duty traffic, in terms of vending, just the whole thing about the town. So that was what the visit was all about.
Successive governments have promised to transform Vieux-Fort into a new economic frontier. Both political parties during the last election campaign repeated many of the same promises. Both of their manifestos outlined a number of projects they planned to implement if elected to office. Among them, the redevelopment of the Uranora International Airport and the construction of a coastal promenade, among others. The current government entered into a US $2.6 billion agreement with Desert Star Holdings DSH for the construction of the Pull of the Caribbean project. And while each successive government from as far back as the 1970s has been criticized for not keeping their promises or implementing their plans, this government has come up against stiff opposition to its efforts to implement the DSH project. But the DSH project aside, government is determined to turn things around in the South. Last Friday's meeting was designed to explore some of the possibilities.
It's more or less fact-finding, the things we could do, because as you know, there are different government agencies. Anything you need to do, you need to collaborate, you understand? So the stakeholders come together and, everybody give their views, what they think, what could be done, etc. So that was what we were doing.
Only time will tell if this administration will buck the trend and actually make good on its promises to transform the South. Even the mayor is being cautiously optimistic.
I'm just looking forward, though, that all these plans that we're trying to put together come to fruition, because we thought we really needs a change around.
For the DBS News World, Kendall Burton reporting.
The Ministry of Agriculture here hosted a delegation from Taiwan International Cooperation and Development Fund recently. The team was here to get a first-hand appreciation of the status of the number of Taiwanese-funded projects. We learn more in this report.
A delegation of officials from the Taiwan International Cooperation and Development Fund, ICDF, headed by the Secretary General, Mr. Timothy Chung, paid a courtesy visit to St. Lucia from March 18 to the 20th. The purpose of the visit was to get a first-hand appreciation on the status of some of the projects being implemented jointly between the ICDF and St. Lucia.
Well, they're assisting us with many projects. One project is the refurbishment of the orchid farm at Union. Another project is the banana production and improvement project. Another project is the assistance to the farm assistance school in Roseau. So today we're taking them to two of the projects. The farmer field school at Roseau. There's a training program for 30 farmers over 3 months, teaching them how to plant or grow cantaloupe, watermelons, and honeydew. And here at the Banana Production Improvement Project, basically to see the unit, the staff, and to get a sense of what they have accomplished so far for the year that they have been in operation. And we take them to a farm not too far from the headquarters of the unit to get a sense of what is involved in harvesting bananas, to get a sense of the process and what happens on the farm before it gets to the shelves in Europe.
A meeting between members of the delegation and the management of the Agriculture Ministry, which was held on Monday, gave an insight into the areas of mutual cooperation.
I believe you will agree that so far they have done a good job, and I would believe in the future we still can do better. And as you mentioned, like the banana project already in the implementation this year already. So we believe it will be helpful, with the following cooperation.
On the final day, the team participated in the opening of a farmer field school in Roseau where support is being given, and then later met with officials of the Banana Productivity and Improvement Project. They then took to the fields where they observed firsthand the production and packaging of bananas for export. From the Agriculture Information Unit, I am Hinkson Butcher.
Castries South MP Dr. Ernest Hilaire has welcomed an investigation announced by Prime Minister Alan Chastney into his involvement in the Jufali affair. Dr. Walid Jufali was St. Lucia's permanent representative to the International Maritime Organization, IMO. Last week, the Prime Minister announced that the government had launched an investigation into the circumstances surrounding the appointment of the late Saudi Arabian billionaire. Sheffield Gillard reports.
During the budget debate last week, Prime Minister Alan Chastney put opposition member Dr. Ernest Hilaire on notice that an investigation would be launched into the circumstances surrounding the appointment of Saudi billionaire Walid Jufali, who represented St. Lucia at the International Maritime Organization. a position previously held by Dr. Hiller in 2014, who allegedly resigned for the position so it could be given to Mr. Jufali. After the general election in 2016, Dr. Ines Hiller launched a defamation lawsuit against Prime Minister Alan Chastanet for allegedly besmirching his name. The suit is based on statements reportedly made by the Prime Minister ahead of the June 2016 elections and in connection with what would eventually become known as the Walid Jufali affair.
The situation here now is we've unearthed a lot of information, and certainly we are not behaving like how the other side would. We have passed on all the information to the relevant authorities, and there is an investigation, an ongoing investigation, and I'm certainly not interfering in the investigation. And I'm hoping to see where it will conclude.
The government also accused Dr. Hiller, when he was High Commissioner to London, of selling diplomatic passports to Jufali. Addressing the media on Wednesday, the former UK High Commissioner says he welcomes the investigation and has nothing to hide.
The Prime Minister has to do everything he can to discredit me. Everything he can. It is an attempt to discredit me, it's an attempt to embarrass me, it's an attempt to shut me up. Why? Maybe because my mouth is the biggest and I criticize the most and I ask the most questions. So the Prime Minister has to find a way to go after me, to destroy me. I am convinced of that. When I spoke in Parliament, the budget last year, I said I know I'm a marked man. I said I know I am a marked man, and I know over the next few months there's so many questions I will have to ask this government that they will do every and anything they can to come after me as a parliamentarian. But let me say to the Prime Minister that he's just started to announce investigations. In fact, he should be prepared to have 1,000 million investigations in me, because I'll ask him 1,000 million hard questions. I will not let up to ask the hard questions and to hold the government to account.
Dr. Hiller says while the Prime Minister will do all that he can to discredit and investigate the opposition, there are members of his own cabinet he should be investigating.
He announced to St. Lucians that he was going to set up an investigation to find out if one of his ministers is being investigated. We're still waiting for the results of that investigation. He had a minister who was fired, and up to today the Prime Minister has never addressed the nation as the Prime Minister to explain why a government minister had to be fired. When you fire a government minister, it is a serious act. And there were a lot of speculation as to why that minister was fired. The Prime Minister was out and the acting Prime Minister made a statement. He came back as Prime Minister and up to today has never told us the true story behind the firing of that minister. One day it will come out. And he has another minister who was involved in a matter that is now before the courts. And of course, you have to ask the question, if you have a cabinet with at least 3 ministers, if question marks about them, what do you do now? You try to flip the switch. So now, Hiller is under investigation, Sean is under investigation, Musa is under investigation, Alva is under investigation, because of the corrupt stench that is coming from within his own cabinet.
The opposition is convinced that the government is using reverse psychology tactics against St. Lucians to prevent the truth from coming out. For the DBS News World, I am Sheffield Gillard.
Please stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back. And now for the lighter side. Thousands of volunteers gathered at a festival in Texas to put together a record-breaking ice cream treat measuring nearly a mile long. Attendees at the Spirit of Texas Festival in Wolfpen Creek marveled at the 4,549-foot and 3.36-inch long ice cream sundae, which broke the Guinness World Record for the longest ice cream dessert. The sundae was made using 500 gallons of HEB Texan Tackle Crackle ice cream and topped with 300 gallons of chocolate and strawberry syrup, 2,000 cans of whipped cream, 25 pounds of sprinkles, and 20,000 cherries. A Guinness World Records educator inspected the dessert to ensure all of the ingredients were connected in a single line. Once the record was confirmed, more than 4,000 festival attendees consumed the record-breaking sundae in 30 minutes. Spirit of Texas organizer Cynthia Corona said the community played a vital part in putting on the festival and completing the record. My favorite part is just the whole community coming together. We have volunteers from Blinn, from A&M, from Mays Business Schools, from a number of high schools coming out and creating memories and helping build a festival, Corona said. Ice cream, you scream, we all scream for ice cream. This has been the DBS News World. I have been your presenter, Alex Bousquet, saying please have a wonderful Easter weekend. Good evening.